Welcome to the Wisdom Exchange TV. The Wisdom Exchange is a resource to help African women learn, lead, and succeed in life, business, and community. It is a forum where women of all disciplines inspire other African women in politics, philanthropy, education, and business. These are the women that are the change agents of Africa. They're the change agents of our communities, our companies, our country, and our continent. And these are the women that will inspire us to see not only what we can do, but what we can be. I welcome you to the first episode of Wisdom Exchange. And I am Suzanne Stevens. I am the producer and the host of Wisdom Exchange, and also the president and founder of the Ignite Excellence Group of Initiatives. One of my proudest moments is the Ignite Excellence Foundation, which really contributes to investing in women leaders of developing countries, particularly Africa. I welcome you to a very special segment today. The Wisdom Exchange really wants to focus on African women educating and helping African women. But we have a special segment and a special person that we're interviewing. And this is called the Ripple Effect segment. And this is about women outside of Africa who really wanted to invest in women in Africa. And as a result have created a ripple effect and impacted women all over Africa. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce not only a friend, but somebody I admire and somebody I respect, Lois Shaw. Now let me just give you a little bit of background of Lois Shaw and her leadership in Africa. Her and her husband have been coming to Africa for 25 years and working at Africa International University. Lois has been very paramount in working on development at Africa International University. In addition to working on development, she's had many roles, but three of those roles we want to really focus on. And she started WOW Safaris, bringing the Western woman to Africa to appreciate and respect the African women here. She's also done a lot of work at the university in regards to giving it a profile through public relations and really connecting Africa International University with the Western world. She's also helped interns and takes a special warmth. Lois actually said to me at one point, I think I get along with 20-year-olds just as well as people my own age, because she hosts people in her home all the time to help them see Africa and what it has to offer. And lastly, and I'm sure she'll share this with you, but one of her most significant accomplishments is providing scholarships to women leaders in Africa. And I'll let her share more about that initiative. Please welcome Lois Shaw.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Oh, it's so good to be here with you, Lois, and your smiling face, and at this wonderful, wonderful place outside, and Karen Blitzen cottage and restaurant, and it's well renowned out of Africa. For those of you who haven't read the book or seen the movie, it's wonderful.
Meryl Streep was here.
Yes, yes. Now, Lois, let's sort of talk about WOW Safaris, because I think that is such a great way of explaining to people what you've done, and that's how we know each other.
Yes.
Through WOW Safaris. Yes. And just to give a little bit of context for our audience, is WOW Safaris' mission is to connect successful North American women seeking significance with significant African women leaders seeking sustainable solutions for their society. So Lois, tell us why you started WOW Safaris.
Well, that sounds like a glorious statement, the way you said it, Suzanne.
It's on your website, Lois. I just stole it.
Okay. And it's evolved into that. But I have to say, it wasn't a grand and glorious scheme I had from way back when. I didn't sort of wake up one morning thinking, this is what I'll do. But for about the last 6 or 7 years, in my office of development at the school, I began to see that the only way to really help Western women who I'd grown to know through connections or whatever, understand my heart and my passion for what was going on here in Africa, was to bring them over, is to have them come and visit, get down and dirty with African women who are trying to make a difference in their communities, and then get their hearts touched and their lives changed by what they saw. So finding women like yourself, professionals, you've been there, you've done that, you've traveled, you've experienced the world, and then there gets to be a little thing where you kind of want to move beyond that success thing and have some significance. Like, well, I wish I could do something or make a difference or get really involved and not just do the hotel to hotel thing or resort to resort thing. Mm-hmm. So in conversation with some women, we decided, well, why don't we just get some of these really great women together, bring them over to see what we're doing here. And my joy was, because I've been here for a lot of years, I've seen amazing African women in leadership. Women who are truly at the grassroots level making a change. And I wanted women like you to see that and not think of the barefoot, baby on your back, basket on your head, bananas in your hand, but that these women were professionals as well, and they had challenges to face, they had things they wanted to do to change their communities, and put these two kinds of women together. And it's a synergy. It's exciting. When you put these two kinds of women together to solve a problem, it's exciting. So I've started doing it, and it's continued to grow, and 2 or 3 times, sometimes more a year, a tour group of women, mostly women. I do occasionally let a guy in.
He sneaks through, doesn't he?
Yeah. But I put these groups of women together. We address a situation in a slum with AIDS, with poverty. But the reality is, Suzanne, and I believe this, all of Africa's problems that you've heard about, that your listeners have heard about, AIDS, poverty, war, poor education, malnutrition, yes, these are problems, but they can be solved if you have leaders on this continent who are committed to making a change. And believe me, those women are the leaders, are the women.
And interesting enough, we're hoping that the people watching this are those leaders, and which is one of our goals today, is to take what you've done, taking WOW safaris and taking the risk, put yourself out there, and invited these women to see Africa. Now, so that the women that are watching today will be able to say, hey, you know what, I can use some of that information, because that's who our listener will actually be. So let's say I'm a Western woman, which I happen to be, who loves Africa, but I haven't had the WOW experience. So if I wanted to come and have the WOW safari experience, how would it work? What would I do, and how would I get involved?
Okay, we have a website, which is wowsafaris.org, and WOW initially stood for Women on the Wild. However, on the web, that's not necessarily a website you want to go to, the wild. But wild, in my thinking, was Women in Leadership Development.
Sure.
So we shortened it to WOW. And WOW Safaris will give you some opportunities to sign up and come on a tour, or you might say, well, I can't go then, but I want to go in April. And what I encourage women to do is find some friends and some colleagues, find a date that works for you, email me on WOW Safaris and say, I have a group of 10 ladies, we're all lawyers, we're all doctors, some of us are teachers, what could we do? And then I like to sort of design your tour to fit your skill set, your ideas, your desires, and then put together a 2-week, we've had 3-week trips, we can have 10-day trips, put together a safari for you that helps you reach your goals and me mine, to bring North American women here.
And to that, reach your goals and they reach theirs, but ultimately this segment's called the ripple effect, so that it affects the African women.
Yes.
So tell me about that. Since I think it's 2005
Yes.
that you started WOW Safaris,
Yes.
What kind of impact has it actually had on Africa?
Wow, I guess that's an exciting question to ask me, and I think it's the women, well, it's both sides. It's the women here in Africa who've been affected by connecting with North American women with skills and focus maybe, and ideas that have enhanced the work that the women are doing here, but vice versa. I've had women come on these tours, and you may even know some of them, Suzanne, whose life has been incredibly changed by their time here. And I'm going to use you as one example, because your mantra is often, let me see if I can get it right, backpack to briefcase to boardroom. But in this context, you've gone boardroom to back to briefcase to backpack. You are
Very
backpacking
true. Yes.
right now.
Yes, very true.
Because your heart was captured by the fact that, wait a minute, I know how to teach and empower women with leadership skills. I know how to help women do presentations. And when you came, that was your skill, and you said to me, I don't want to do anything, I just want to do whatever, don't ask me to do something professionally. But before you knew it, you were changing the lives of some people, and we have testimonies to this day of students at our university whose lives have been pretty much changed by learning the skills of presentation and how to project and speak to an audience and use those skills, and their ministries have been profoundly effective. And you're one case in point. There's others.
Well, thank you. And let's just focus on one of the others as well. I know there's been a group of women that have worked in now I want to say up north. Karen, Gail, and Susan did some incredible work.
Yes.
Can you expand on that
Yes.
a little bit of what they've done? Because they were introduced through Lios Shaw, correct?
Absolutely. They were two physiotherapists, one with a child with physical needs, and a woman who ran a school for kids with physical needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they came out with that skill set and that passion. And we took them up to a place called Joytown, which is the school for handicapped kids here in Kenya that's in great need of lots of help and assistance. And their hearts were just drawn to these kids and the possibilities. They went home, they got friends together, they put together an entire container, an 18-wheeler size container of wheelchairs, crutches, walkers, everything you would need to do physiotherapy to help these kids. Then, when they emptied out this big container, they turned it into physiotherapy room and hired and are paying for, through friends, a physiotherapist to help kids learn how to use this equipment. Because very often, a child gets their leg fixed or something and they never learn how to actually use it. So that's another. There's just numerous stories of women who've been impacted by these trips, beyond anything I dreamed.
So with that, do you feel Lios Safaris has achieved its objective?
Oh, beyond my objective.
Now, what would you like to see happen with Lios Safaris going forward?
I would like to see, here's the truth. We have had some failures. We've had women come in and help with microfinance. That's a very big buzzword right
Yes,
now.
absolutely.
We all want to do microfinance. We've had a couple of times when we've tried to get a team together and get a group of women to become self-sustaining. That has not always worked. I would like to figure out how to do that well. I would like to be more intentional with women coming out to fit them more carefully with their skill set. I would like to see it grow a little bit, and eventually I would like to hand it over to an African woman leader who can be as confident in welcoming Western women to Kenya. Now, this only happens in East Africa, Suzanne, where I am, like Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. Maybe it could go continent-wide. Opportunities for professional women to come and do what we've done with Lios Safaris. So maybe go continental and go African. I guess that would be my...
Okay, excellent. Now, it's really important that you say there's been failures. And I think with every success, there needs to be failures. So what would be, let's look at the microfinancing. What would have been your biggest learning from that initiative gone wrong, for now anyway? Mm-hmm. What would be your biggest?
I think there's a couple of things. One was people were coming, I wanted it to happen fast. I don't think I did the homework and the background that I could have done. I think my deep understanding of what it means to be poor in the African context, I wasn't as prepared. I enabled Western ideas and try to impose them on the African context. I've been here long enough to know that it doesn't always work that way. I also learned that probably the greatest component of microfinance is trust. And I don't think we built trust to the extent that we could have with Western women coming to work and sit side by side with African women and solve this problem of becoming self-sustaining.
You know, it's funny, some of the fundamentals. We have our hearts in the right place. We hope it's going to work, but some of the fundamentals of human nature, no matter where we are in the world, they do prevail. Mm-hmm. And that's a really good example, and a really good lesson for our audience and for me, and I'm sure for you, that the due diligence can't be ignored,
yes.
no matter where you are.
Yes.
It just cannot. And the cultural implications
yes.
can't
yes.
be ignored,
yes.
because it is a different culture.
And I tend to get excited about things,
sure.
and I want it all to happen, and I want it to happen tomorrow, and I needed to do some background work.
So, with this heightened knowledge, when you're doing a WOW safari, you take an intern, or doing a project with AIU, do you do any reflection, sort of pre, during, and post, that demonstrate this was successful or not? Is there anything that you consciously do?
Well, post, I usually do an evaluation. I send an email and ask the women who've come, did this meet your expectations? What disappointed you? What excited you? And we have a thing we do, not every evening, but many evenings, which we call high-low. And at dinner time we say, what was your high of the day? And what was your low of the day? And I vividly remember one time, I don't know if it was the time you were here, Suzanne, or not, but we had gone early in the morning to a very, very difficult place in the slums, Kibera slums. Kibera slums on the edge of Nairobi, about 1 million people, 1 square mile. It's devastating. The women had gone from there to the home of a professional woman, a quite well-off woman in Kenya, a Kenyan woman. And for them to go from there to there, that extreme, some of them were just in shock. And they said in their response, don't ever do that to us again. It's just too much to handle emotionally to go from abject poverty to wealth in 24 hours.
So have you ever done it again?
Nope.
Okay. And this is evolution, right?
Yes.
Someone who takes the risk, and then it's an evolution to where you go from there, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, you've been here 25 years, off and on, and I think it's almost like a 6 months, and then a year, kind of thing. Huge change. I mean, picking up your life and moving. Tell us a little bit about when the decision came that, you're going to move your life to Africa. How was that?
Well, when my husband was graduating, he was getting his doctorate. He had some colleagues at his university that were from East Africa, and they really encouraged us to come. And he said, how about we just take a couple of years, live in Africa, experience that. I'll get a little teaching under my belt, and then we'll start our real life. And so we did. And we had a tiny little baby girl with us, but we thought, hey, we're young, we can do this. We'll go to Africa, check it off our bucket list, then get on with life. And we fell in love with this place. We fell in love with students who considered higher education an incredible gift that you don't take for granted, motivated. My husband loved teaching in this context. And initially I was mom. And I wasn't always sure what I should be doing, but a faculty wife finds her niche here and there. And as time went by, I got myself involved in development for the schools. My background's in journalism. Mm-hmm. I started writing some PR pieces for the school, and it kind of grew into that. So here we are, doing this 2-year job 25 years later.
And Lois, because we did our pre-interview, I know it wasn't easy at first.
No, it wasn't.
Just tell us a little bit about that. Why was it hard?
I had been a professional. I was assisting an editor for a magazine in the U.S. It was kind of like, here's your inbox, here's your outbox, go home at the end of the day. I never cooked 3 meals a day. We ate out. We were just kind of fast-paced. We were married 10 years without kids. So I kind of did my own thing. We came here. I was a mom. I was a stay-at-home. I had to cook. Cooking is very different. It was back then, 25 years ago. Shopping was different. Cleaning was different. I just felt in just about every area of my life, I wasn't doing a good job. I wasn't doing real great at being a homemaker and a housekeeper and a mom and all these things because I was so out of my comfort zone. But meanwhile, my husband was having the time of his life, and I desperately wanted to be a good support.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, and I'm sure you have been. Now, with that, what would you say to this point? You're not in your 30s. You're not in your 40s.
No. Okay, I'm 62 almost.
Okay. So to this point, what would you say has been your biggest accomplishment?
As far as in a professional way, I'm so thrilled that these WOW safaris have enabled me to raise funds for women in leadership at the university. The secret part of the WOW safaris is out of every woman's trip to Africa, a certain contribution is written into the package that will go to scholarshiping African women.
Excellent.
And there are women at our university who are phenomenal, but they may come from southern Sudan, and I don't need to tell you about Darfur and the troubles in Sudan. Or they may come from northeast Uganda or Congo, or our students come from all over the continent. Lots of those areas. Rwanda was a war zone when we were first at AIU. So there is no way these women could be self-supporting or even have an organization that would support them. And the only way they could get trained to become future leaders is with scholarship. And for me to see some of them graduate, and I know you've met some of them, Suzanne, I'm as proud as punch to see them walk across that platform and get their master's or their PhD, because we've been part of that. Mm-hmm. And so that was a large part of the initial desire to see WOW Safari succeed.
Did you ever feel you really had a choice except to do this?
That's a good question. It did evolve. It was one of those things that as I kept seeking how to find my place and what I could do and how I could help, all these pieces came together. And there's another secret agent in all of this, and it's my sister, who's a businesswoman that you know in Toronto. And her, she loves me and often wondered what in the world I was doing over here half the time. And she wanted to see, to bring some friends and participate in what was going on over here. And I think between the two of us, and we kind of cracked up this idea together. Wonderful. So it's an evolution, really it is. It wasn't a grand scheme.
So, because it wasn't a grand scheme, I'm always interested when there's a grand scheme or an evolution. Yeah. So there's a woman, be it in her 20s, 30s, 40s for that matter, and she's trying to figure out her purpose. What advice would you give to a woman trying to seek her purpose? Any advice that you could?
I think one of the things that absolutely defines it for me is, what have you ever done that has made you so happy and energized and excited that you just think, I want to do this over and over again for the rest of my life? And I remember after the first successful tour when people went away saying, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. I've never stepped out of my comfort zone and experienced this, and get emails. And to this day, the last group that came, I've gotten some emails back saying, I thought I was going to change Africa. Africa changed me. And I just want to jump up. It just excites me and makes me say, I want to do this forever. Yeah. I love this. I just love seeing what happens. So I guess if I'm talking to a young person, I'd say, what have you done that has just made you so excited? Why push against I'm supposed to be this? Just keep trying things. You've got your whole life. I'm just getting the hang of it, and I'm 62.
Well, and I don't think we should ignore that, because, sometimes it takes people, you brought up your children, you came here because your husband, he loved it, you didn't. We're saying young people, but I also think a lot of times it takes women or people in general, a long time to figure out, what is my purpose? What am I doing here? And so what would you tell somebody that's 60? I mean, let's face it, you just climbed Killy 2 months ago to raise funds for the Leonagini Community Center being built at AIU.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So right there and then, you're 60 too. What advice would you give to women? Because you only started Wow Safaris 5 years ago. Talk to those women.
Maybe I'm a late bloomer, but I didn't get my master's till I was in my, I didn't finish university because I stopped a little early too. Anyway, I didn't get my bachelor's till I was in my 30s. I didn't get my master's degree till I was in my late 40s, and guess what? I'm studying for my doctorate right now, and I'm in my 60s. I feel like, hey, when you start getting over the hill, you gain speed going down the other side. And I'm
Wonderful.
gaining speed. I mean, I'm very thankful I have good health, and that's not to be taken for granted. But you're just never too young to keep trying new things, seeing what's out there, enjoying. So do something that makes you laugh. Do something that energizes you. Do something that fulfills the hungers of your soul, so that you can, there's nothing more powerful than a soul on fire. And I want to be like that. I want to be on fire, and I want to wake up. I'm not superhuman. I wake up and I'm grouchy, and you can ask my husband, but I want to wake up with a purpose, no matter how old I am.
Okay. So with that, there's times, I'm a huge believer that we're the best at the edge of our comfort zone, and pushing that edge is where you have to go on the other side of your comfort zone sometimes to find out what you're capable of doing. And there's a concept I talk about. It's called edgeness, and edgeness is an enhanced version of you when you've pushed your edge of your comfort zone. What have you done to reach this purpose of Wow Safaris or helping women with scholarships, that you have become, or was very uncomfortable doing it, but if you don't do it and continue to do it, you won't achieve your objective?
A lot of things, I think. But I love that word, edgeness. That must be a Suzanne Stevens original.
It is. It's coined. I'll put the registered trademark next to it. It is.
Edgeness. I guess, well, there's a couple of things. One is this balancing of roles. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, now I'm a grandmother, I'm an employee, I'm very involved in my church, I'm very faith-based in my goals. I have all these different, I'm a homemaker, I take pride in my home, I'm a traveler, and how do I get all of that to fall together? And let me tell you, I've dropped the balls lots of times.
As anyone would.
And sometimes I've neglected my dear husband, or I feel like I hear about some mothers who've done these amazing things with their daughters, and I think, goodness, So I do struggle with that sense of inadequacy. When one thing is successful, something else is failing. I feel that often in my life. And I think that's probably an area where I need to focus more carefully on what my real goals are in life, what I want to see at the end of the day. I think another area that I struggle with is sharing my passion back in North America with people that are interested but really not. And sometimes you're sharing your deepest passion and it's like, well, how about those Mets? They're not interested in what you're doing, and I find that hard because it's my world.
So that you find it hard. So it's uncomfortable for you to share that. Is that what you mean?
Yes, I feel like I'm sometimes shut down.
Okay.
I want people to care about what I care about in Africa and get it, and it doesn't always happen.
Do you continue doing it?
Yes.
You have no choice, do you?
Yeah, I guess you just have to keep at it sometimes. But there really are, sad to say, people from North America who are myopic. The world is in North America. It's Starbucks and Tim Hortons and their world. And what I care about is just like out there. And I feel like, well, what do I have to say to you? You really don't seem to have a global perspective. So that's hard for me sometimes.
And yeah, that's your idea. Just keep knocking on those doors.
Yeah.
Excellent. You know, Lois, you've talked about your edginess and meeting people that don't embrace your dreams and passions as much. And it's like, must be uncomfortable going in and talking to people, especially raising funds when they're vacant.
Yes.
And you still have to do that. When you started not only raising funds for AIU and scholarships and WOW safaris, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you foresaw actually happening?
Who likes to ask for money? Mm-hmm. Really, it is a difficult world, and the reason I know that it's difficult is because there's whole foundations and organizations that build their business on helping people learn how to ask for money. Mm-hmm. And when you're coming from a context that is unfamiliar with the constituency that you're trying to raise money for, you have to work very hard at painting a picture and capturing their hearts to care about what you care about. So that has been hard, and I have this sort of game I play with myself of imagining myself walking into a boardroom of older male executives and who care about Wall Street and the stock market and everything else, and trying to convince them that women leadership in Africa is where to put their investment. And it's not easy, but I just keep at it. I think my passion to do it and my desire to raise money for our university, particularly right now, for two things: the Leah Ngini Women's Community Center, which is the gateway building for our university, where we hope women all over Africa will see it as a place to go, to be encouraged, to have seminars, workshops, that kind of thing. It's not just a building, it's what goes on inside. I would love, before I die, to see that building just a hub of activity for women's issues on the continent, at least East Africa. And to get that message across just sometimes is kind of like plugging and trying to get your message out there. And then to see people captivated with that kind of an investment in women will pay dividends forever. It will change this continent. And so I have to keep rewriting my script, retelling my story, but it can be tiring. And sometimes you think, can't you see what I see? You know, I want them to catch this, and that's hard. That's hard.
See, in there's a really important message. You don't need to like it, you still need to do it.
Yes.
Right? At the end of the day, if you're focused enough on the vision, you still need to pound the pavement.
That's why they call it a job.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So beyond, the fundraising, is there any other obstacles that you encountered that maybe you suspected or you didn't suspect that you've had to overcome, being even with WOW Safaris, for example? They can share with us.
Okay, I guess I'll one of them is the understanding the social media world. I've had people help me with my website, and I've had people help me understand how to make good use of things like Facebook and tweets and Twitters and all this stuff. And there is a new generation coming up, Suzanne, who think an email is archaic.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that the baby boomers are moving off the scene, and this young generation that I would love to tap into is coming up, and I just at times feel like, how do you get to the heart of younger professionals in their late 20s and early 30s who are a different breed? And good for them, and they have lots of exciting things going on, but am I talking to my generation? And I think it's been a challenge. Unfortunately, we have a couple of young interns living with us right now who kind of go, Lois, that's not the way you do it. This is the way you do it. So I hope.
Are you asking them those questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I hope. I always picture myself as a lifelong learner. I want to be a lifelong learner. And this is my edge right now of trying to learn how to market well my dreams to the 2030 set. I think that's one of the big ones.
Now, to that, there's always challenges, but you wouldn't have went down this road if you didn't have some natural gifts. Now, this is hard to talk about for a lot of people, because I'm going to ask you, what are your gifts? What do you know to be your gifts? And I think you need to know that.
Yes.
What are some of the gifts that you exploit in order to achieve your objective and passion for women leadership?
Okay. I hear your question, and I think a good way to know what your gifts are what other people tell you they are. Mm-hmm. I can't wake up one morning and decide I'm a fabulous singer unless other people have told me that. I'm an encourager. I think I'm a cheerleader. Mm-hmm. If people would characterize me, and even my husband will say that, he's like, I'm a glass half full girl, and I always see on the bright side of things, and I believe things are possible, and I believe Africa can change. So I'm a positive, and I do think I have the gift of encouragement, and maybe of empowering, and I write well. I'm a good writer. I can communicate well. I can write something that could make you cry, mm-hmm. and sometimes I can write something to make you laugh, and I'm happy with that. Ever since 9th grade, my English teacher said, "Well, you write well," and that meant a lot at that time, and I keep at it. I work at it, but I love to write. But I think my public giftedness is encouraging.
So, which are great gifts to have, absolutely great gifts to have. But there's got to be something that gets you down.
Yes, those very same gifts. Because when I think I'm encouraging or building somebody up and they fail, or I think I've got my handle on how to help somebody and it doesn't work out. I mean, I have a sad story I can tell you, Suzanne, of I guess personally one of my greatest disappointments was there was a young woman. Let me just back up a little bit. The struggle in living in a context of poverty, which you do in Africa, is to figure out how to use whatever you have to help the poor. And my husband and I decided this idea of just handing out was not working, and what you needed to do was hand up, help somebody become self-sustaining. And that wasn't a new idea to us. It was things we talked about with colleagues. So we decided we would invest in this young woman, and she was a woman who was a street girl. And we'd often helped her with money to feed her little girl and to get herself cared for the day, sometimes medical help she needed. And over time we decided, okay, this is what we'll do. We'll send her to beauty school. She really wanted to be a beautician. So we helped her financially to go to beauty school so that she could have her own little beauty shop one day, and she graduated almost top of her class, very personable young lady. And in her little slum village where she lived, we had some friends help us, and we got her started in building a little house on one side, beauty shop on the other, and she was going to have her own little business, and everything looked great. Well, the sad part of the story is, the poor are not always the noble poor that we like to paint them. Sometimes they're mean. And people in her village were going like, well, why does she have this opportunity? And they just began criticizing her and shooting her down and saying, where are you getting all this money? You must be involved in something illegal or cultish. And we tried not to show our faces because we didn't want the white factor involved in this. In the end, they turned the village against her and ran her out of her little village until she was homeless and actually came to live with us for a while. All because we were trying to be good people and do the right thing and help this poor woman. And she ended up, at one point, worse off than before. And I was devastated. I said, I give up. I can't do this. How can you help people? Fortunately, the story has changed, and right now she is living in a different area, and she does have a beauty shop, and it's another long story. But at that point, I wanted to just say, I'm staying home and drinking tea. I'm just not doing anything anymore.
So from that, what did you learn?
I began a journey, Suzanne, and I'm on it now. I'm actually studying in a doctoral program at our university, and my question is, the question for my thesis that I'm writing is, am I killing you with kindness?
Excellent.
And how do we help without hurting? There's this book called Dead Aid, which was recently written about over-aiding from the West. There are just numerous books. One called Walking with the Poor. And I realize maybe a lot of the problems that we have from the West is we feel good by doing certain kinds of good deeds, but have we been thoughtful in doing these good deeds? Who's getting the benefit?
Yeah.
Can I go home with a little check mark for being a good girl, and meanwhile have left something behind me that's completely upset the status quo? So I have become more careful, more thoughtful, and more intentional about the way, not only myself, because I realize, wow, safaris, I'm bringing North American women over to ask them to help somebody, like this young woman's name was Hannah. I want them to help Hannah. Have I done it a disservice, or have I been helpful? And that's a huge question right now that's being asked globally with culture. Our world is becoming smaller, and people are going from the West to the rest, and from the rest to the West, and everywhere.
Right.
And what are we doing effectively? So, talk to me in about 3 years, and I'll tell you what I've learned.
Which is sort of a great segue to some leadership lessons. You've given us a lot here, and so if you're advising other people some of your key leadership lessons, can you give us 2 or 3 leadership lessons that you've learned that you can share with our audience?
Yes, some of them may not be right to that very question, Suzanne, but when I think about it, one thing is, do what you love. Do what you love. I just think it would be terrible to be told to be a leader of something, or asked to be a leader, and do it out of just duty. It's just duty does not stand the test of time. Love and passion does. I think another leadership lesson is be able to laugh a lot, know your mistakes, and don't go foraging. And I've done this. Don't go so far out of your way ahead of your followers that they don't know if you're the enemy or the friend out there. And
Excellent point.
you need to keep your people with you by communicating. And that's a lesson I've learned. Sometimes I think everybody knows what we're doing, and then I find out that maybe not. So I just need to be sure that the people that I'm bringing are truly following me, because you're not really a leader if you don't have any followers.
That's right.
So I hope that I would be a leader who would communicate, have passion, care about what I'm doing, love what I'm doing, and be able to laugh at all my mistakes, not take myself too seriously.
It's interesting you mentioned take yourself too seriously. I'm reading a great book called The Art of Possibilities right now, and they have this rule number 6. Don't take yourself so seriously. And when you're passionate, it's
Yes.
pretty hard not to take yourself
Yes.
too seriously. And it's one of those lessons that I appreciate you saying, because I often remind myself, Suzanne, you're taking yourself too seriously.
Yes.
So it's an excellent point, and thank you for sharing those leadership lessons with us. Now, with that, and one of the other leadership lessons, if I can extract one and add to yours.
And I do have another one.
Please do, and I'll add.
Everyone talks about think outside the box. Think
Yes.
outside the box.
Yes.
I don't think you can think outside the box unless you're hanging out with the people who are outside the box. And I realized that bring around you this this group of a coalition of guidance, I think is a term that I read once. Bring around you people who are going to say, Lois, that is just not going to work. Or I love you, but you're way down the wrong road. So these, first of all, people who, when you say, I have a great idea, they say, do it. Instead of, well, this can happen, or this can happen, or did you ever think about this? I love people who say, go off the deep end, who cares? It'll be a fun ride down the other side. You know, I love that kind of outside the box people.
Yes.
So I want to live outside the box, not just think outside the box.
So hang outside the box.
Hang outside the box.
Very well said.
So that's one of my leadership principles. Get out of there and hang outside the box.
And I think that's also an excellent one. And the only one I'm going to add is one you keep saying throughout our discussion today is never stop learning.
Yes.
Because everything you've talked about, I mean, as I go back to that, you're flying Kilimanjaro at the age of 61. You're doing your doctorate when most people are starting to retire. You know, you're trying to answer the question that you're so passionate about, and it's not about timeline. It's about getting the question answered. And that, I think, is a good message for anybody, because we all develop at different times in life, and reach our potential at different times in life. So during all that process, has there ever been that sort of time where you went, this doesn't feel right and I'm going against my core, my value system? Did you ever feel like you had to compromise your value system at all?
Boy, that's a hard question, because there's my deep core values that I would say probably I don't think I've gone in a completely different direction, but there have been things that that maybe I've had to change along the way. I'm just trying to think, Suzanne, that I don't think I've compromised who I am, but
which is fine, and you know what? Which is good, but sometimes in life there's things we've done and we've just wondered, you know, I had to go against myself, and I didn't realize I did it.
Okay, yes, okay, thank you. I taught English for a while. Hated it. I mean, I'm a writer. I'm in the journalism world. I was asked to teach English. My students seemed happy. I just, the burden of going to school every day and grading papers and checking grammar and, you know, incomplete sentences and sentence structure, that was not me. And I did that when our children were younger and they were in school, and it seemed like perfect. They're in school, you go to school, teach. And I'm not a teacher. I am not a teacher.
You're a wise woman. So, Lois, I know what's next for you. What's next for you is, you know, your doctrine. You mentioned earlier that there's a couple more safaris coming up this year, and a group of men are climbing. You're going to take
yes, they're challenging the women.
Okay, to raise more funds,
yes,
which is excellent.
Yes.
Given the chance, what would you do now that you haven't done yet?
You mean what's on my bucket list?
Yeah. What would you like? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would like to get my pilot's license. Is that count?
Really?
Yeah. I'd love to skydive. I'd love to skydive. I'd love to parachute. I hate like caving or spelunking or going down into all that kind of stuff. But put me up in the air, I love it. So I've often thought it'd be fun to fly a small plane and parachute and skydive. Is that the kind of thing you were asking for?
It could have been, you listen, whatever turns you on, it could have been anything. But I know.
And I'm in the process, I've written a novel, and I've had it critiqued by a book club that I belong to, and there's a few things that I need to fix, but I guess I'd like to publish my novel.
And I know you're writing another book as well.
Yes, I've written a couple of nonfiction books, just very practical kind of books I co-authored, but this was my foray into novel writing. My husband was doing a sabbatical in Scotland at the University of Edinburgh, and I needed something to do, so I took classes on novel writing, and you know, every class led to the next one, to the next one. By the time we were on in toward the end of the year, I thought, my goodness, I almost have a book here. So I've since worked on it. It's sitting on a shelf. One day, I'd like to publish it, and guess what? It has a lot to do with Africa and women.
No doubt. So with that, I'm just going to ask you a few quick questions to round off our interview today. And that is, if you had a daughter 10 years old, now I know you have a daughter, but let's say your daughter's 10 years old, and you're where you are right now. What words of wisdom would you give her?
Follow your dreams. Don't let anyone keep you from thinking you can try. I think the lifelong learner thing is really important to me. I just think, just take a course. Learn something you've never learned before. Take a class in ballroom dancing. Something. Just keep learning. For me, I'm very committed to my faith, and I would say that the Jesus that you see in the Gospels, his life of passion and joy and commitment to his calling and his mission statement really keep me focused when I could get discouraged. And I would tell her, a person of faith is a person of depth and character, and don't just glide along on the surface of life, but go deep.
Great. Now, what do you wish someone told you when you were young?
I wish someone had told me, be careful about going to Africa because you may end up there for 30 years. No, I had a great mom, and she always was the wind. She was a wind beneath our wings. She often said, go for it, you can do that. And she believed in us. And one thing that I think is a great gift that my mother gave to me and helped me learn when I was young, I would hear her telling other people the good things that I'd accomplished, which she wouldn't say to me.
Oh, mothers never tell us directly.
Right, they never do, but I would think, whoa, mother thought that was good. I think I would tell my daughter, encourage other people, accentuate their gifts and talents, give praise. Doesn't matter what you think about somebody. If they do something good, you tell them. If they need encouragement, encourage them. I hope that's the kind of woman she will be.
Now, is there anything that you would have changed on this journey?
I wish earlier on, when I was a young mom, that I had started some of these things earlier than I am now. I think I delayed a lot just because life kept me busy. Sometimes I wish I wouldn't have been so serious when I was younger. I think I've learned to be, my kids will tell me that I'm crazier now than I ever was. I've learned to embrace life more. I wish I had, when they were little, a little more. I just was maybe a little anxious as a mom to do all the right things in a row and, go to bed on time. And hey, now I would say, you know what? Have dessert first. That's okay once in a while. So I think I maybe delayed a bit.
So, final words of wisdom. And, what words of wisdom would you like to impart to African women?
Choose to be intentional. Choose to initiate. Choose to succeed. Choose to follow your dreams. Don't wait for it to happen. Just go out there. And it can be dangerous, and it can be hard, and you can maybe be discouraged and maybe wonder if you're doing the right thing. Just keep trying. Believe that you can follow these dreams. I know it sounds trite, but go for it. And you're never too old. I'm case in point. You're never too old.
Thank you so much, Lois. And great words of wisdom. Great words of wisdom. I want to thank our first guest on Wisdom Exchange TV, Lois Shaw. And we will be airing every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, so we hope you will join us. And we're very excited that Lois was our first guest because she's been a true inspiration to me and to my husband, Michael Ginrich, who is also producing this show. And we will be having on our next show, Joanne Mwangi, which won the Entrepreneur of the Year last year in Kenya. So please do join us for that. Please, there's We are looking for women leaders all over Africa. My husband and I have made a decision that we'll be traveling through Africa for the next year, plus interviewing women leaders from every country as possible. So if you know a woman leader that you think would make a great interview, please do send us an email at info@wisdomexchangetv.com. We'd love to hear from you. And also, we have a special request. If you don't want to miss one of these interviews, there's going to be gems like what Lois shared with us today. Please sign up to go to www.wisdomexchangetv.com and sign up to subscribe on the homepage. And we will invite you every time we launch a new interview. We'll just give you a heads up that it's coming your way. If you subscribe to that, or if you go to the SuzanneFStevensSite.com and subscribe to Edgeness, either one of those things or both of those things, when we're in your town, I'm a presentation coach and I would love to work with you, and we will announce after the next segment a winner of presentation coaching. Thank you for joining us, and my recommendation to you is push your edge. You never know what your potential is until you get to the other side of your comfort zone. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Great having you.
Thank you. It's so fun.
You did great.